Hello, all. Welcome again to Doppler IOTA. It is your host, Ike, and I am slowly transitioning into a full hotep, or at the very least, a homeless person, as you can plainly see. Uh, but today, the subject matter I'm going to talk about is the idea of. I've definitely talked ad nauseum about this subject matter before, but it's just like free and open dialogue. Again, it's the reason why I founded this channel. It's the reason why I tried to make these videos, to try and get people to think and trying people to get to understand one another better, by fully grasping or fully analyzing a situation, seeing the forest through the trees, or sometimes the opposite, seeing the trees through the forest. Because some people are bigger picture and they miss out on the individual, and some people are smaller picture and they miss out on the bigger picture, or how things can affect the collective. And I sort of wanted to touch on that today because I watched an interesting video where a bunch of people on a panel were talking about policing and how we should move forward with policing, which I thought was it's like one of the things I always notice with these panels is they'll bring up statistics addressing the Black community and how, statistically speaking, there's either this not a different amount of crime that there is with white people in the same tax bracket, or how, statistically speaking, that some, for whatever reason, there's more crime in these, and it's just one. I oftentimes find it interesting that, surprisingly enough, very rarely, at least in the conversations that I end up seeing, do I see any people of color actually in the conversation. It's either some white person who feels guilty about being raised in like an affluent household, virtue signaling, or it's conservatives just bring like saying things so tone deaf, like, oh, you'll notice that, statistically speaking, if you see Black people in a demographic, there'll be more crime or some shit like that. And it's just, it's very strange, or rather like off-putting or concerning, that that's how these conversations. Now, of course, there's conversations with this being had with African Americans. It's just, it's weird to me that you don't see those as often, or maybe I'm just on the wrong part of YouTube. But I wanted to talk about, that kind of segues into the idea that, I feel as though we need to have more dialogue so that these ideas can be more well thought out. And these ideas, because in a lot of these debates, they're not trying to change the mind of the opposition, because both sides are just so firmly indoctrinated into the beliefs that what they're trying to change the mind of is the people in the audience. They're trying to make someone in the audience see it from a different perspective, with our arguments, counter arguments. They're not trying to change the other's minds. But I feel like very rarely do they properly address the people whose minds they're trying to change. It's like, for example, if you're a conservative addressing liberals, you don't go like, "Oh, you're an idiot. The Democratic Party is responsible for all the policies that's made it bad for Black people in America anyway." Because it's just like, then if I did identify as liberal, I as a liberal would feel attacked, or like you're like, I've been blue my entire life. I was raised blue. Yeah, I feel attacked now. You're telling me I'm the reason for my own turmoil. It's things like that, and I feel like it comes across as very tone deaf. And I feel like we need more of these interactions with people from the opposite. We need less echo chambers, because then those ideas can be fully fleshed out and articulated in a way that is easily digestible for audiences on both sides of the aisle. And I feel like once we start getting that, you'll start getting less arguments like the idea that, oh, there's statistically more crime in Black neighborhoods. And that's such a backhanded thing to say. It's almost, and I know when conservatives say this, they're not saying like Black people are more likely to do crime just by virtue of being Black. Like, it's more nuanced than that. It's something along the lines of like, a combination of poverty, the color of the state, of the state you're in, as well as the city and who's the person running the city, and all those hodgepodge mixed into a big clusterfuck of a situation, where usually, because the way cities work, they're kind of built upon the backs of like the lower class, and they make this kind of vacuum where if you are living below a certain income bracket, it's almost impossible to leave, and you're living paycheck to paycheck. And because you live in a city and and the demographics are so fast, uh, poverty doesn't drive crime, relative poverty does. So if you live in a community where everyone's poor, there's not likely to be a lot of crime. However, if you live in a community where there's someone where just a block away or not even a mile drive, there's a neighborhood of affluence. There's You're far more likely to have crime. Like poverty does not cause crime, relative poverty does, and that's what you can tell that's what they're trying to get to. And hopefully I'm not making an excuse for actual racist, but you can tell that's where a lot of them are trying to get to. But it comes across so tone deaf because they're used to everyone they're talking to being on the same page, the same way. SJWs and leftists are used to everyone they talk to being on the same page. So when they say it's not something like systematic racism, which is such a vague, innocuous term that has like five different definitions depending on who you're talking to, it's like, but as far as you're concerned, everyone who you've talked to is on the same page. So it's just one of those things. And hopefully, if with a more free and open dialogue, actual racist and actual bigotry, people who are actually arguing bad faith it'll be brought to light, because sunlight is the best disinfectant. It's just like the more you talk, if you are someone who argues in bad faith or who is disingenuous, like the tighter the noose you wrap around your neck with your, you know, bad faith arguments or bigotry or racism. But I just feel like that's something that's so lacking in today's society. And I also, even when it is happening, again, it's being argued from such a way where it's just like both sides of the party will be on two completely different pages. One side will be arguing like, oh well, it's democratic policy that led to this, and I'm just like, one side will be arguing, well, and sometimes it's weird because even though it might be the case, it's just like no one's arguing that now. It seems like a non sequitur to say that. It's almost as if you don't want to address the issue, and they might not mean it that way, but it comes across like that. And I just find it really, really funny that people get so lost in in semantics and finger pointing that they forget the plot. Like they forget the initial reason why the conversation is being had. But that's just something I wanted to share with you all today. I hope hopefully it made you think. Uh, Hopefully I gave you more than just a huge pile of word soup. But remember, like, subscribe, all the YouTube things, and make waves, people. Peace.